Hi everyone, it's Darren, and we're back with another Coleman Home Office edition. I'm not working the drive-through. We're going to try another audio system today, and today I'm delighted to be joined by my good friend Jeff Noble, who's a director at BDO Canada, and you're the director of business and wealth transition. So you're a bit of a big shot, and you help businesses of a variety of sizes help navigate into the future for where their businesses ought to be going. And I thought we'd have a great conversation today because this is a very challenging time for pretty much every individual business owner and executive because this COVID corona panic has created massive amounts of turbulence and change for pretty much everybody. So the trick is how do they cope and deal with it, right? What I wanted to focus on today, Jeff, was kind of get some of your perspective on how your clients are navigating through this. What are you bringing to them to help them get through this as successfully as they can? In such a remarkably unique period of time.
It is remarkably unique, without a question. And I think you think about going through any change, and you get resistant to it at first, and you tend to be a bit afraid, a bit unsure, so you procrastinate a little bit. This one, there was zero time. I mean, we can look back and say, well, we heard a warning the end of January, and something else happened at some other point in time. But you think about in my case, for example, I was headed to the U.S. The Thursday before March break. I had to go see a client, and I didn't go. I believe it was the next day. It was announced, if you're in the U.S., get home because we're not going to let you back. And when you get back, we want you to stay isolated for 2 weeks.
Right.
And very early the following week, we sent everyone home to do work from home. So 100 offices across the country, 4,000 people, go home, get plugged in, and do your thing. And it's remarkable how quickly that got done. And that was, believe it or not, only 5 weeks ago.
Actually, yeah, it feels like an eternity, doesn't it?
We are. Yeah, I think our go home order started on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Today's Thursday, so I think today's the beginning of week 5, and it to some people feels like 5 years.
Yeah.
So the change we've been going through, at first it was, okay, we'll be home for a couple of weeks and we'll kind of make do and it won't be a big deal. And it's clearly become something different than that. And our clients, as you know, are mostly private company owners and their families. And many of them have been forced to literally shut down.
Right.
Others have adapted what they do. You're reading stories, as I am, about wonderful manufacturers of fashion wear that are now making not fashionable but highly needed personal protective equipment.
Right.
So masks they're doing, smocks that people are wearing, and all kinds of covers and gloves and things to keep first line healthcare workers safe. And you'll see too that who knew that a grocery store person was a necessity, and they are. We need to eat. We're going in the grocery stores now, and because this is becoming something that's taking longer to get through than likely many of us anticipated, we're limiting how many people come into these stores now. We're lineups you're seeing, people are keeping their distance from each other. A selection is a bit different than what we may be used to. So we've got folks working very hard and very long hours to make sure there's stuff for you and I to go in a store and purchase. So the clients are making their way through that. And then we hit first part of April, and a couple things happened. One is month-end payroll happened, and right. April 1st, when I say we, I'm talking our clients, right? Month-end payroll is due, and April 1st rent is due. Okay, I got that, no problem. Let's get that looked after. I got a line of credit at the bank, whatever I'm doing. The next couple of weeks came very quickly. Now I've got an April 15th payroll to make, and oh my goodness, May 1st, my landlord's going to want something as well. And my revenue tap, maybe it's not shut off, but it's kind of running like a leaky faucet instead of running steadily.
And I got a list of accounts payable that are also getting old pretty quick, and my receivables may also be getting pretty old.
So there's some real strain on good old-fashioned basic working capital. Just when you talk about payables, receivables, payroll, fixed expenses, variable expenses. And when the top line is challenged, these things become very challenging for these business owners to meet. The consequence of that is that they are hyper-focused at this moment. And it took a couple of weeks for, I got to say, this reality to set in. And I think some that watch this may say, that sounds like something happened to me in my household. The reality of the revenue is not there or may not be there. And it's certainly going to be less predictable than what we're used to. And the reality is, I have a working capital challenge that I need to meet. So the inbound inquiries to our firm, as you know, we've got breadth of services over and above accounting and tax. It's been amazing. And the things being asked about are related to the government programs, which seem to be changing. And I'm going to say they're evolving. Usually the word change might make people think that it's kind of reaction. They're evolving and improving as the federal government and provincial government try to keep up with the challenges that business owners and their families are having.
Right.
And as they evolve, we have people calling us up. How do I access this program? Am I eligible for this program? My goodness, I never thought I'd need government help. I thought I was stuck with paying taxes all my life, and now I'm going to need some of that back. How do I access it? As an employer, what are my rights and what are my obligations? And from the point of view of my employees, what are their obligations to me and what are the rights that they have? We want to make sure everybody's going to be safe and sound. Service businesses, many of them are able to work remotely like you and I are doing.
Yeah.
And so now, a business that maybe wasn't well set up for that, so they're cobbling together infrastructure, IT infrastructure, very concerned about the security of communication and data. These are all new things to many businesses. And, that's the kind of stuff we're getting this very urgent, in the moment concern from business owners.
And you're exactly right to point out that this is something that has hit pretty much everybody at the same time, and we all have the same set of facts, but they're impacting us perhaps differently. Some businesses are able to pivot and change their production to match what is needed today, or they're able to adapt. Like, this is great for companies like Amazon as an illustration. Anyone that got into the delivery business has been very good. So, but I think for most businesses, this is such a disruption to their normal way of doing things that they've got to figure out a way forward if they can. And I think they've also got to look for resources that they can bring to them that they may have never had before. Because, I think many business owners have never had to worry about, how do I get money from the government? And you just mentioned that they've been paying taxes out. Now what can they get back? And the rate of change from government programs, assistance for how do I maintain my staff? How do I pay them? What is my duty to them? How do I access any kind of bursary or government relief for me? They really do need access to resources. And so the first thing I think most business owners that we're talking to is, how do I just get through the next 5 minutes, right? Because this was a bit of a reverse camping trip for a couple of weeks. Now this is serious. I really need to focus on this now. But then on top of that, just to pivot, actually, before I get to that, I think it's important to highlight something that BDO has done a great job, which you were just telling me about before we started recording, which is the COVID-19 resource section that you guys have put on your public website. And you've had enormously positive response to that, haven't you?
Yeah, in reaction and in keeping up with and hopefully trying to keep a little bit ahead of these urgent minute-to-minute needs that our clients and just businesses across the country, whether they're clients of ours or not, we've made available to them something we call a COVID-19 hub. And it's updated regularly, and it has access to resources in our firm. I get calls for things that I don't typically do on a daily basis, and I'm able to in real time direct, the business owners that I work with to the appropriate resources in our firm to help them get what they need right away. And we've had, I think I just heard this number early this week, 50,000 hits on this thing. That's a huge number for a website of a professional services firm. So there's really high value there. And
so what I'll do, by the way, Jeff, is I'm going to put in the description underneath of this thing on YouTube, I'm going to put the link to the website that you're talking about, and that might get us 5 or 6 more hits for you. So that'd be great.
We appreciate that. So we've always been in this business of helping business owners access government money, but that's usually been government incentive money. So the government offers,
like SRED credits, tax credits, those kinds of things. Yeah.
Research and economic development credits. And they can be sector specific depending on what type of activity the government is trying to drive at a given time. And they range from things like, getting apprenticeship wages subsidized to, large money, like 6 and 7 figure money coming from the government to help a business with that can have a serious impact on economic development. So these have been incentives for growth, creativity, and innovation. Now, the growth, creativity, and innovation are having to come from, frankly, from the guts and the wits of the business owner, and they're now looking to the government for support to stay open. stay alive. And
Yeah.
the innovative things that are happening. I mean, this is my grandfather probably said to me once, necessity is the mother of invention. So you need to do something. Entrepreneurs are extremely resourceful people.
Right.
And seeing things from, you start off thinking, oh my goodness, I'm dead in the water because I need to have people in this room to instruct or to meet with or to teach something to or to do business with and transact. I mean, the Law Society is now even allowing virtual signatures of documents. I mean, that's pretty extreme. So I wouldn't want to call them the most creative bunch, but they're realizing these are things that need to get done. The use of online formats like you and I are using now has, I'm going to guess, grown exponentially.
Right.
And entrepreneurs are telling me, at first we balked because, we've got this thing, we need to shake a person's hand and really be in their presence to have the kind of impact we need and build the relationships we need. And they've adapted to things like this pretty well. Many of them have. And the recognition is, what? I can now increase my capacity because I could set up X number of meetings from where I'm sitting in a day.
Right.
If I have a typical meeting that's let's say a 1 hour meeting, well, the first few minutes are a warm up and a discussion and get me a coffee. And
but there's only about 10 minutes of real meeting, right?
Maybe it's 35, right? But it certainly isn't 60.
Right.
So doing this, guys are setting up, 30-minute meeting, 15-minute break to follow up, get ready for the next one, another 30-minute meeting. So productivity has this great opportunity to become more productive. So I think those kinds of things are happening. And again, that's real time. And that kind of innovation is happening. But the concern business owners are having, Darren, is really this. I need to make payroll and I need to keep the lights on. And I need to keep producing whatever I can find, whatever I'm able to make that is of value and relevance to my customers or someone else's customers, because we need to stay in business. And
now, sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
What in the midst of that, though? I'm a race car fan. I like to drive cars, racetracks and stuff. So I've had the benefit of having some advanced driving classes, racing schools. And one of the most common things the instructors talk about is, especially when you get into a stressful situation, is people's eyes tend to drop. They tend to look at the speedometer and maybe 10 feet in front of the car. And one of the disciplines of being a good driver is keeping your eyes high, so you can see as far as you can, and letting your peripheral vision manage what lane you're in and things. But the key is look as far as you can. One thing I think is a danger for business owners today is they're going to be so focused on the right now and the next week and the next payroll that their eyes are going to drop. And I think it's probably now more important than ever for them to lift their eyes back up to go, wait a second, are the decisions I'm making right now congruent with where I think I want to go? And one of the things that I know that you really spend a lot of time on with business owners is helping them to appreciate that the business for many families has been the engine of wealth creation for many people in the family. And I think a lot of them now are going, wait a minute, I had left all of my eggs in a basket that is in big trouble right now. So how are you helping them to kind of think about the business, not just in today and getting through today, but the decisions they make are congruent to where they think they want to go, and have maybe their assumptions about what they thought their business was worth or who was going to buy it or how they were going to exit it? All that stuff has probably been put in the blender too, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt that most private company owners, and this is small companies, small lifestyle business, all the way up to large corporations that employ hundreds of people, the owner and his or her family typically have the vast majority of their lifestyle dependency and wealth tied up in this operating company. Why? They know it, they understand it. The returns most of the time are excellent. They have a fair bit of control over things like where they want to go, how they want to get there, marketing, sales, what products they want to make, what services they want to provide. That's all under their control. They know they don't control markets, and there's been some interesting things happen. When things are going well, we think we're in control of things. So you come out of a bad time like we did in 2008-9, you survive that, you feel invincible, and it's been a bull market for just about anything anybody's doing since then, business and finance. So though that bull market, and again, not just talking the stock market, Darren, but just speaking about the markets and the economy, a bullish economy. We'll talk
Absolutely
about.
right. Yeah.
language. That's kind of out of the business owner's control as well. How will they benefit from that? And we've been having conversations with business owners for years, helping them understand that they do have a serious problem because of risk concentration in one place, very little wealth diversification, very little income diversification. And what's happening today, literally at this moment with COVID, it's really helped business owners no longer be willfully blind to that fact. Because what's happened, it's major, it's hit everyone. It's hit every private company owner. Many private company owners are benefiting from this because they happen to be in a business that's in high demand. Maybe they're making personal protective equipment. Maybe they own a grocery store. So it's very high demand. Even they realize it's only high demand because of something that was completely out of my hands.
Right.
And the ones that are suffering badly, so instead of a grocery store, we're seeing income going, spending is going to grocery stores perhaps rather than restaurants. Same thing. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Again, not because of something that person did, decision made a generation ago or whatever it is. So I think what's happening, it may still be a bit of head down, but that head down off hours, which probably means lost sleep, is some conversations business owners are having with themselves and probably with their close family and their advisors is, what do I do next? Should I carry on and stay in business? And if I am, what are my true goals and objectives? And what's my purpose for that business and staying in business? And if I don't do that, what are my options? Mm-hmm. Do I look at monetizing some of the value I've created and redeploying that wealth or getting chips off the table? Do I look at redeploying all of that capital? So having a liquidity event and taking So I'm now looking at risk and liquidity. Let me try this wording for you. I'm now going to look at risk and liquidity in my operating company, my sole huge asset, the same way I would expect an investment counselor to look at risk and liquidity when they're putting together a portfolio for me.
Right.
I'm now going to look at my business with an investment mindset. And if I look at options for myself and my family and how we're going to go forward, what does it mean to stay in business? And how do I prepare myself? Because this is going to happen again. Whatever this is, something out of my control, very damaging is going to happen. How do I be ready for it next time?
Right.
Question. Then, does that mean carrying on in this business, a different business? Does it mean monetizing all or part of it? And when I monetize all or part of it, do I redeploy the capital, or am I going to carve it up now among my beneficiaries and successors? And I think those conversations they're probably happening very late at night or very early in the morning. This is the stuff that keeps people awake at night. During the day, they're focused on keeping the machines going and the lights on.
Well, this is interesting because I think we have this paradox where it's forcing most business owners and executives to probably be more in their business now with urgency than they've ever had. But at the same time, they now have to get out of that, and maybe it's at the 3 a.m. when they can't sleep. They have to get out of that to work on the business. They have to step away from the urgency of the day-to-day to get back to the front of the ship and go, where are we really headed right now? And I would suggest that being able to flip that switch for most people is very difficult. And that I think is where the coaching comes in, because they may be very good technicians about how to navigate the day-to-day in the business, but those larger conversations to help identify where am I going, what are my right strategic decisions, that's where they really need someone like you to help guide them with some wisdom and some experience at a very difficult time, because I don't think most people know how to do this all on their own, or they would have done it already.
Well, I mean, that's what we say, right? If I was going to do it myself, I would have done it already. And I will say there's many smart, successful business owners that have been able to get themselves to a point where they spent, past tense, most of the time working on the business. But
right.
That was generally growing it to build a better business that continues to grow and ultimately becomes a greater, larger, more successful wealth engine. Still all the risk in one place. Right. So now we're talking about we've got to work in the business 12 hours a day or whatever to keep the motors going, right? We got to keep the oil in the machine. We got to keep the switch on. We need to make payroll. We need to pay suppliers. We have to keep going. And the working on the business now, I think, is more working on life. And where does this thing have to get me to? Because I guess in the back of my head, I always thought this will be my retirement fund. We'll sell this at some point or not. and we'll live our lives out. And I think that is bringing this current times are bringing more focus to on the business meeting. What's the big picture here? Mm-hmm. And what's this investment doing for me or not doing for me, or what's it doing to me or not doing to me? And because it's difficult, it's hard to have those conversations with yourself.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, I'm not sleeping well. I know why I'm not sleeping well. The need for some kind of get this out of the way. The need for some kind of an advisor, a trusted person, an advisor, an advisory board, a sounding board even. Someone that is willing and able. And I think the ability here is important to ask those right questions. And that may be different for everybody, but things can be, circumstances vary. I do think that it's key to have someone to talk to on this stuff. Yeah.
Well, that seems like a perfect place to close our conversation for today, that it is absolutely valuable for people to find some resources that might be new, that they can bring to the table, that have some wisdom, have some experience, because this is a new world for everybody. So you can't figure this out on your own. You're going to need some help, I think. So it's great to connect with someone like you that can bring a huge amount of resources to the table. And again, I'll put a link to the COVID-19 page from BDO on there. I'll also include your contact info if you don't mind. So if people want to have a conversation about how they can navigate their business through this difficult time, we'll be sure to connect you guys together. So Jeff, thank you for your time today. This may not be our only conversation because I don't think this thing's quite over yet.
I'll be here waiting for your next call. I look forward to it.
Okay, my friend. Thank you. Stay safe. 6 feet apart, one hockey stick from everybody.
You as well. All the best to your family.
Good.
Cheers.
Thank you. Be well.